Hello everyone! Today I'm going to walk you through my favorite makeup brushes, and this video comes highly requested. I'm not sure why, but in the last several weeks this has been the most highly requested video, so I finally washed and gathered up all my favorite brushes to share with you. I'm going to start with the powder brushes, move on to foundation brushes, move on to cheek brushes, and wrap up with the eyes. So let's get started, and my very first powder brush that I'm going to show you is the Goss limited edition holiday brush. I just love this one because it can be used for all types of powder, whether it be for setting concealer, powdering all over the face, or just the T-zone, bronzer, even highlighter if you like a generous amount. So I love this brush, and if you can still find it, I highly recommend you check beautylish.com, grab it before stock runs out because this is the most phenomenal brush. I also really like Wayne's brushes in general because they wash well. And for those that did manage to get it, Wayne did release this brush in white, and it's just as beautiful, just as soft. I love the ultra plush tape, super tapered design, so I highly recommend this one. The handle is also nice and weighted, but it's not too flimsy by any means, so I love the construction of this as well. Moving on to another powder brush. This is pretty much the holy grail of Chiku Hodo brushes. This is the Z1, and I love this powder brush. It's lightweight, it fits in my hand perfectly. It's a great personal brush, and it fits perfectly into meteorites if you use the pearls. So I also love this for loose powder, but I can also use this for powder foundation as well, which is sometimes a little bit harder to pick up, especially with a softer brush like this. I particularly like the Z1 because the bristles are packed a little bit closer together, so that way it's not all over your face the way the Suku brush is. So as you can see, the Suku fans out quite a bit more when they're side by side, and I love my Suku brush. This is the most expensive powder brush in my collection, and I'm still glad that I paid every penny for this, and I purchased it from selfridges.com. But as much as I love this brush, I think that the Chiku Hodo is actually better for me to use, and I've actually used the Chiku Hodo more than I have my Suku, just because this is so delicate. I don't want any of the hairs breaking, but I do think that the Chiku Hodo is the perfect balance between price, performance, and quality, so I highly recommend the Z1. And now that we've discussed the top of the line powder brushes, I just wanted to share that if you don't have ultra sensitive skin that requires a really soft bristled brush, or if you have oily skin, definitely try something like the Chiku Hodo Passion Series powder brush. And obviously this is pink, so I know it's going to get a lot of popular votes just because of the color, but the GSN1 is also another great Chiku Hodo powder brush. Chiku Hodo and Goss are pretty much my favorite brush brands at the moment, so you'll be hearing a lot about them in this video. But this is a great powder brush for the price. It still isn't cheap by any means, but it's a quality product. And just so you're in the loop, Goat as well as Goat and synthetic mix bristle brushes are actually ideal for oily skin because they don't damage the bristles. So I highly recommend the Passion series, and again, GS1. For some reason, mine's missing in action. I think it's hiding in a corner somewhere. So unfortunately, I don't have it with me to show you, but I have used it in tutorials before. So you can just refer to one of my older videos to see it in action. And last, for my favorite powder brushes, this is Goss's number 11, and ever since I reviewed the Goss face set on my blog, thereviewer.com, I have fallen more and more in love with this brush. It's just perfect for powder, and I actually have started using Wayne's philosophy of focusing on smaller and smaller brushes. So before, my favorite powder brush used to be the Tom Ford, and as you can see, there is a massive size difference between the two, but as I age, I actually use smaller and smaller powder brushes. Now, that is not to say that I don't love my Tom Ford bronzer brush as much as I used to. I still love and adore it. It's so soft, and I can't believe how well it's held up over the washings, and it rarely ever sheds a hair, even though it just shed a hair right now. So this brush is great for bronzer if you like to wear bronzer all over your face, but I know a lot of women tend to use this for their meteorites as well. If you don't have the Chiku Hodo Z1, then definitely give this one a shot. And I also like the Haku Hodo S106 for powder as well, just because it's easier to get into the grooves of the nose as opposed to something flat like the Tom Ford. But both of these are great powder brushes if you're into the oversized trend. Now for liquid foundation. My favorite traditional foundation brush with the paddle shape is Bobbi Brown's. Nothing beats this synthetic brush, and normally I hate synthetic brushes because I don't think they work very well. Some people tell me that they do still see streaks, but I think it all comes down to the user, how you apply your foundation, what foundation you're using. There's so many different variables, but really this is as good as it gets for a paddle brush. Now for a stippling brush, my favorite liquid or cream stippling foundation brush is the MAC 130, I think it is. The number's starting to wear off, but this 130 is really tiny, although it's a power player, and I think that this is one of the few MAC brushes that I would repurchase. I feel like MAC brushes in general have been on the decline, but the 130 is fabulous. It works so well with foundation, so I highly recommend this. And if you like a more dense foundation brush, then check out the Tom Ford Cream Foundation Brush. This was one of the very first Tom Ford brushes I ever purchased and used and loved, so it's still one of my favorites, and it is, in my opinion, still the best for cream foundation. And now for stippling brushes. I will admit that I'm not really into stippling brushes, but I know a lot of you are, so that's why I'm going to discuss them. I just happen to use these when all my other brushes are dirty, which is why these have been used and not cleaned because they are pretty low on my priority list. But because I did receive questions on Instagram, I will talk about this. This S-Class is beautiful. Obviously the gold and the orange combination is just so beautiful, and that's probably the reason why I bought this brush. But this is great when I want a light application of powder or a light dusting of powder. Some people also use these to blend in liquid foundation, but I'm a beauty blender girl, so for me this doesn't really work as a foundation brush, more like a powder. The same thing applies to the smaller version, the J4002. I love this for highlighter. Sometimes I use this as a backup to apply my Clé de Peau Luminizing Face Enhancer. That's about it. Speaking of highlighter though, let's get to the good stuff with the cheek brushes. So normally I apply my Clé de Peau highlighters with the Chiku Hodo GSN 04, and I love the flat top because it's super smooth and it just blends everything in seamlessly. So I love this. I highly recommend this, whether it's for cheeks or just powder or even highlighter like I use it for. Now another highlighter brush that you can use is the Z4 from Chiku Hodo. This is a cheek slash highlighter brush, so you could use it for either function. I personally like to use it for blush just because I like smaller blush brushes, but this one is beautiful for both purposes. I just don't like to mix my highlighter and my blush brushes together just because I use my Clé de Peau highlighter so often and so regularly. And now for my favorite blush brush. This is Wayne Goss's number 14, and I love how subtle this makes blush application. I'm big on subtle blush. I don't like that really heavy-handed look, so especially with pigmented blushes, excuse me, I will use brush number 14. Now when I'm working with a baked blush or a blush that is resistant to being picked up by a really soft brush, I will use my Shiomura 20H Pony, and this has slightly coarser bristles, so it helps pick up the product and distribute it just as evenly. I like the angled shapes because it can give a contoured look, so sometimes when I'm in a rush and I don't have time for bronzer, I'll just sweep the blush on across in a diagonal motion with this Shiomura brush. And I know a lot of you are going to ask, well, why don't you like your Suku brush more than the Wayne Goss 14? And though they are somewhat similar in shape and in function because I use both with really pigmented blushes, I just find that this Suku is, again, super high maintenance, and I have to be careful with what I use it with because I don't want the hairs to split. It's honestly as simple as that. If you can afford more than one Suku brush of each kind, then sure, go for it, but I like to save my Suku brushes for special occasions when I really want to pamper my skin. So that's why I generally tend to reach for my Wayne Gosses and my Chiku Hodos more. And last but not least for cheek brushes, I recently talked about this, but this is my Chiku Hodo Z2, my highlight brush, and I absolutely love this. Even though it's a highlighter brush, I use it to contour. And that's just because since I have a somewhat small face, I can actually get into the grooves of my nose, underneath the hollows of my cheeks, my jawline, my forehead. I can get anywhere with my contour powder using this brush. So even though it's it's soft, it deposits just the right amount of color. I like things to look subtle and as natural as possible, so it blends and applies at the same time. So it just makes my life really, really easy, and I love this so much I have 2 of them. And finally, let's wrap things up with the eyes. Let's start with the bare basics. First, I have the MAC 239, and this is the first eyeshadow brush that I ever fell in love with, and it's still a workhorse staple in my everyday routine. So I can't live without the MAC 239. I have about 4 or 5 of these, and they're always around just in case I need one. So this is a good one to have on hand at all times. But if you're looking to upgrade from the MAC 239 and you want something a little bit more fancy, try the Shiomura Pure Kolinsky 10F. So this has a straight top edge, but it functions just like a MAC 239, and you can use this to blend any kind of eyeshadow, whether it be cream or liquid, powder, whatever. You can layer glitter with this as well. So I highly, highly, highly recommend the Shiomura Kolinsky brushes. I actually used my number 11 today to blend out my Armani cream eyeshadows. They're just phenomenal, and they also wash really well. They're soft, but they have a lot of resistance. Amazing. That's all I have to say about Shiomura Kolinsky. Now for my favorite blending brush. This one is by Tom Ford. This is the number 13, and this isn't necessarily the softest blending brush in the world, but it definitely is one of the most effective, and it fits my eye socket just right, even though I do have smaller eyes. So even if you have deep set eyes, you'll absolutely love this. If you're looking to splurge on one blending brush, make it this one. Now, if you have really delicate eyes and you don't like harsh fibers touching your eyes, then definitely try the Wayne Goss number 4. This is a smaller version of the Tom Ford, but it's ultra soft, and it just feels feather light across your eyes. So I highly recommend this. This one is my favorite blending brush from Wayne Goss, and he actually does have a few of them. Now for my Haku Hodo. This is my favorite Haku Hodo blending brush, and it's very similar to the Wayne Goss, except a little bit fluffier and wider. And honestly, I have no idea what the number is because it's not written on the back here, but I will find it in my archive and I will list it here so that you know as well. But I will be purchasing more of these just because, first of all, I think these are around $20 a piece, which is really awesome, and they are alternatives to MAC's 217s, which are super scratchy these days. And now we're going to wind things down with pencil brushes, which I'm using more and more often. I think it's because I like that smudgy eyeshadow look a little bit, and I highly recommend the Wayne Goss number 2 if you have delicate, sensitive eyes, or if you just work with products that are really pigmented and you just want a sheer wash of color. So the Wayne Goss brushes are soft, but they do deposit color, okay? I don't want to make it seem like everything's super sheer. So the Tom Ford, on the other hand, is perfect for smoky eyes when you want to really intensify because it has more resistance in the bristles. I also feel that the Tom Ford can be used with liquids as well as creams, but the Wayne Goss I would reserve for powder only. And last but not least, for slanted brushes. These are meant for eyeliner or eyebrows, and as most of you know, I use pencils to fill in my eyebrows. But occasionally I will run a little bit of concealer underneath the brow, especially if I have not tweezed my eyebrows in a while. And for that, I reach for my Chiku Hodo GSN 13. This is one of the best angled brushes I've ever used, and it's actually pretty affordable. So it's soft, but it's not too soft, and I love it because it's very precise. Now, if I want something a little bit softer to use on my lash line, I'll reach for the MAC 208, and some people might not think this is soft enough, but my eyes have been through quite a bit with false lashes and the whole bit, so my eyes can tolerate a little bit of poking, especially from a brush. So I highly recommend, in that case, the MAC 208. I actually love this brush a lot. I use it for liquid, cream, gel eyeliner, whatever I need more precision for, I'll reach for this. I don't actually use this on my eyebrows. Again, I don't fill in my eyebrows with a powder anymore, but if I did have to, I could use it for either eyeliner or eyebrow powder. And don't forget to stop by my blog, thereviewer.com, because I will share extra little tidbits about Haku Hodo as well as different brushes for different skin types on there as well. So thanks always for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!